Wanted to do one more video after I made the belts, show it working before I put it back together, and try to show a little bit more what I did and the condition of the inside. As you can see, the band is the new band is on the spindle, which will rotate this when it's put through the antenna. So you can see it's turning, the band's coming around. You can see right there is where the splice is made and melted together. And what I learned doing this is this stretch magic. Let me see if I can grab it. This is a 1.8 millimeter stretch magic bead and jewel cord. And what I did was did some research on this polyurethane belts that you can buy, but I had to get them from China, and I was gonna guess that it was 2 millimeter that I needed, and I think I'd be about right on that. They do make them a little smaller, but they're hard to get, and they take about a month to get, and I didn't want to wait that long. So I read online that this Stretch Magic was made of 95% polyurethane. So I bought the 1.8, which is the biggest they make, brought it home, and man, it worked great. It melts together, and then once it's dry and you have shaved off any of the bead that is created and pull on it, it is permanent. I mean, that stuff is melted back together like it was, original. So on this side, you can see this belt. This belt I didn't make as good. I'll show it up close in a minute. The reason I say I didn't make it as good is it's just not quite dead on center. So there's a little bump when it comes around. You can't really notice when the Earth's spinning, and that's that's moving the Earth. There's just maybe a tiny little bump as it goes over the spindle. But I think these belts, it took a few tries to get them the right size. And the actual glue, the crazy glue, splicing out the old black belt worked. And I had them both spinning. The problem was that they were brittle, and it broke. This one broke first in another area. So I decided I definitely needed to make new belts. I did go in with some old projector oil and just put a dab on some of the spindles, not on the rubber, but just on some of these wheels and the top of and bottom shaft of the motor. Just a drop, not even a drop, just enough to hopefully get it to go into those little places where it was making a lot of noise. And if you compare to the first video, you can hear it's making a lot less noise. That clicking sound is the lever, like I explained in the first video, that flashes the yellow or white light and red light on and off. That's a click, and that's supposed to be there. Obviously the motor's supposed to make noise, and I did get it to quiet down quite a bit by just adding a tiny bit of oil at some of these joints where the wheels and cogs and things are moving. So again, I didn't clean it real great, but I took a Q-tip, wiped this bulb off because it was a little dingy. So that'll shine in a nice green glow inside once this is all back together. I went ahead and made a solder joint on the wire that came apart. There was just two little pieces of tape like this over these joints. I'll put the original tape back. And then I've got one more wire that goes up to the tower that's hanging in here that I'll have to, when it's all back together, feed it through the hole and put just a dab of solder on the bottom where it was connected that way before. So that should work. The buzzer's working. And that'll send that signal up to the top of the red tower. And blink this light. And that was working before, so I have no doubt that it'll work again. So you can see it's spinning away. The cords are working as they should. Everything's turning. Everything's tight. So again, I use Stretch Magic. And I'd say go for it if you're trying to make a little belt for an old toy or something. you know, stretch this a little bit before you make your measurements and cut and splice it together with the, I'll show you what I used. Because I got the idea on the internet with, on YouTube, watching other people's videos. I just took an old knife blade and I mounted it with this vise to my tape and used a blowtorch, heated up the tip, got it good and hot, so I had a couple, you know, like a minute to work with it. That's about all the time I had, I think, to work with it, but didn't really need that much time. So, so you can see the wheels turning. You can see that red lever in there. It's got two ends and it's going around, and it's, let me see, let me get down. It's flipping those contacts back and forth to make the white and the red lights go on. This spindle, so I made the belts while this was together. I didn't do all these tabs. I would have had to undo the tabs in there to get that belt on, you know, on where it goes in there. If I can see it, there it is. The little pulley, that rubber pulley right beneath the earth, the rotating satellites. I just wrapped the stretch magic cord around that, brought it out, did everything real close. The first time I made it, I made it with the spindle, this spindle on, but it was just 3 tabs in the battery compartment to take that spindle off. So I went ahead and took that off because that first belt I made wasn't quite tight enough, and it was kind of hard to get on over the top of this shaft. So you can see this has rollers. See those rollers there? It rolls because it makes a bend. And there's my joint. You saw come around. It's not the cleanest, you know, it's my first time, but it's working. And once I got it good, I didn't want to try to make another one there. It was really hard to get that close to everything. Get the torch heated up, and without, you know, again, this is my first time. I'm not a hobbyist. I don't, you know. So, anyway, wanted to show this before I put it back together. You know the condition. It was pretty clean inside here, so I didn't really do anything. I just blew it out and took a Q-tip across the bottom. There's a little tiny bit of dust. But I didn't touch the earth. I didn't touch the satellites. They look clean. And you can see how that's spinning pretty smoothly. I only found one other video on the internet that showed the earth spinning, but it was stopping every, you know, other second. And even though this might have just a slight little bump when that belt goes over the pulley where I made the connection, you can't even tell. It's just spinning well. That's spinning well. So you've got new belts. I think they're going to last. It's working. The motor starts every time now. That's it. So again, this will be up for sale on eBay, and I'll